All right, so we're honored today to our speaker that we had for our June dinner meeting was still willing and able to convert to this being a virtual meeting. So we're happy to have Mr. Patrick Murphy of Project Murphy with us today. He's a certified professional coach holding two coaching certifications. I myself have gone through a coaching certification, and not to speak poorly of the PMP, which requires a lot of effort and was a 4-hour exam, as many of us know. But to obtain a coaching certification, it's at least 50 face-to-face hours in coaching workshops and over 100 hours doing coaching sessions, practices, interviews, readings. So to obtain the title of a professional certified coach is a lot of work. So know that as we listen to Mr. Murphy today. He's the founder and CEO of Project Murphy, so he knows coming into a presentation with an audience of project managers that put in project before his name, we're going to expect some acumen with project management, even though he isn't a project manager. So just as Papa John's Pizza, we expect him to be on the up and up for projects. He's worked with leaders and managers from over 10 Fortune 500 companies and growing, and he has a unique education background in the arts and film production, which for those of us who didn't start off as project managers and we came from different facets and different industries, I think what that brings to our customers and how we look at projects is a more diverse way of thinking and a diverse way of problem solving. So we look forward to Mr. Murphy's enlightenment, and we welcome him to our Montgomery County stage. Over to you.
Thank you, Matthew. Appreciate that introduction, and I will begin sharing my screen with you all. Oh, Matthew, you gotta enable my screen sharing.
Yep.
There we go. Thank you for that. Matthew, you can see that? Should be able to. Perfect. Well, welcome everyone. And it's great to be here on a Wednesday night. I am a few blocks from the White House, so it's just been an adventure of the last couple days. And to be able to come on in here and be with you all is really wonderful. I will not, it's not even a formal ask. Sometimes I do love seeing faces. So if you're in Zoom decent mode and you feel like putting on your video, it's just sometimes nice to be able to link into some people instead of seeing some names. But Russell, thank you. I think you might be the only one at the moment, so I appreciate that. And I love the baseball field back there. So excellent. So we are going to talk today about a workshop that I do as part of a 4-part resiliency series I'll do with organizations. This is called Above the Fray. And in short, it could probably be summarized as the power of perspective. And the sub of this is how to survive and thrive in a difficult work relationship. I'm telling you, they say sometimes you teach what you most need to learn or be practicing at the very moment. We're going to talk today about how do we change perspectives that are causing really negative reactions in us. How do we get past people, places, and things that just really drive us off course when we're trying to head in a certain direction. Okay, so how do we kind of stay above the emotional fray of really difficult relationships, both in work? When I originally designed this, it was definitely for work. And with things going on in the world right now, these tools are absolutely applicable. So we'll do a little bit of workshop and some writing today. You won't have to share your examples if you choose to do some writing with others. So by all means, please feel free to workshop a real life relationship going on and take a swing at it. As Matthew said, I have a business here in Washington, D.C., Project Murphy. I do leadership development. I do coaching and facilitation. I've been doing this for a couple of years now. For a long time, I was in a job that I was like, every night I'd pray that I was in a different job. And now I've got a job where I think this is exactly where I'm supposed to be in life. So I'm grateful to be able to share this with you. I'm grateful for Matthew and PMI for having me. and we will dive on in. At any point, I have the list of the participants here. If you do wish to speak, you can either use the raised hand function or you can unmute your microphone. I can see you, and you'll raise to the top of the list, and I'll call on you. I do a very interactive workshop, so there's enough participants here, so I'm hopeful we'll have a bit of participation, even at 7:47 on a Wednesday night. Beautiful. So above the fray, or how do I emotionally unattach from people, places, and things that just automatically get under my skin? So this is kind of where we're going to be headed today. It's what are the actual tools? So I used to work somewhere long ago. I won't tell you where it is, so you can't go to my LinkedIn and look it up. But I used to work somewhere, and I would have some coworkers or bosses, just when they would walk into the room and be in my presence, it was like automatic negative reaction. Like just that person's presence conjured up real negative emotions in me. And no matter how hard people told me to get unhooked or let it go or work with them, I just could not get past kind of the knee-jerk emotional negative reactions towards some people. And I needed a lot of help and a lot of tools for that. And so what I'm going to show you here today is things that I do day in and day out. I do them all the time. I used to carry around a notebook with me and do some of these exercises. So if this is something that you think is relevant for you, I'd ask you to try it today. And the way that I like to frame my workshops is, I'm not here telling anyone they have to change their perspectives or do anything to get unattached from anything. However, I am going to lay out some tools, and if you want to pick them up, great. If you want to pick them up 5 years from now, that's great. If you want to pick them up never, that's okay too. I just think that there are some tools to make people live a bit more peacefully and a bit more happily. Right? So Matthew, would you mind running the poll question? I'm not sure if you had a chance to load that. I just want to get a temperature for the moods in the room. In person, I can normally get a vibe for what we're working with, and then I can adjust. This poll question should allow us to give an idea of kind of the moods that are going on here.
Yep. If you want to go in the chat window and click on that JPEG, it's right. The results are right there. That's right.
Okay. Oh, perfect. Okay. Can you see that on the screen?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, let me see if I can bring your shared window to the front. Okay, well, I'll tell you because I can't quite get that to work that way. So we've got curious, neutral, tired, slightly annoyed. That's okay. No one picked the last option, which is we're talking about moods. So that is excellent. I'm okay with that. Let's see here. How do I get this out? Oh, resume share. Okay.
This is Tom. Looking for the survey itself to be able to answer it.
Yeah, I saw there was a JPEG there, but I have not seen how you could actually answer it.
If you scroll up earlier in the chat window, there's a SurveyMonkey link there, so we can revisit the results later on in the presentation as well.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate just some of the participation in that, and I see some curiosity. It helps me get a vibe for what we're working with here. So thank you for that. So today I find adults love to know where you're headed in a workshop or webinar. So here's what we're going to do today. We are going to talk about the power of meaning-making systems. Okay? As human beings, we are constantly making meaning of the world around us. I think the bigger question to be asking is the meaning in the stories we're telling ourselves about people, places, and things around us helping us or hurting us? And so we're going to dive in with some tools to investigate some of those stories. And then we're going to workshop, if you so choose, a real-life work disturbance, or it can be a real-life disturbance in general. There's a lot going on in the world. And then I'm going to bring you up to an empathetic story time tip that if there are people, places, and things that just consistently get under your skin, here's a nice tip I have found that will really help soften some of your own edges and free you up to a much more peaceful existence, maybe with some of these relationships. And then we will wrap up at 8:45 in time for some questions and answers and the wrap up before 9 o'clock. Supplies. So we're going to do quite a bit of writing tonight, if you so choose. if you want to. So what I would ask is if you had a pen and paper near you, that would be wonderful. You don't need a ton of paper, but a decent amount, at least one side of a full sheet would be good. If you so want to, and I'll give you a second to go grab some of that. Okay. All right. Here's what I'd like you to do with that pen and paper, and we're going to talk this out loud here. I want you all, if you so choose, to think about a person, place, or thing. It can be a principle. It can be a concept, something that just automatically causes a negative reaction in you. And I want you to write that down somewhere on the top of your paper. Just jot it down. And then I want you to start thinking about two questions. What is the emotional impact of this on you? And then what is the impact of this automatic negative reaction on your overall leadership ability? So what's a person, place, or thing that causes automatic negative reaction? What's the impact on you emotionally? And what's the impact on your leadership ability? Give you a minute to just think about that, jot some notes down, and then I will be asking for some interaction. So I'll ask for some folks to unmute and share some of their thoughts on this. If you have any questions, while I send you off to do some writing, just unmute your microphones and jump in.
Do you want us to answer if we have an answer to this question?
Yeah, I'm actually going to open it up here and ask for some group participation to debrief what they're finding. So Jake, if you wanted to, I'm not sure if that's why you're jumping in, but if you've got something, you don't have to share the person, place, or thing, because sometimes that can be personal. But what I would love to know is, what is the impact on you emotionally?
Well, okay, I worked at one company that was very, very challenging and difficult, and I didn't really like the leader there very much, and I left. And so for a long time, when I thought about that position and that person, and when I saw them, I had like this negative reaction in my stomach and my gut. It's like, wow, I really don't like that guy, and I'm glad I'm gone. But as far as my impact on my leadership, it didn't really have much, because what I was able to do is actually take that experience and say, you know, what can I do as a leader, since I have been a manager for many, many years and lead a group of people, is say, what traits did he display that was so negative that I can make sure that I don't do as a leader, and make sure that I lead my group more effectively and have more interaction. So I turned it into a positive relation. So I would say it didn't really emotionally impact me. I used it as a positive experience.
Beautiful. I find so often in life, sometimes there's somebody that gets introduced that is just a real pain in the butt for a long time. They turn out to be some of our best teachers. I love that. Elizabeth May, Beth.
Yes. So I actually wrote down two people, and I'll just talk about the one at the moment.
Sure.
Someone who is in a leadership position, and the anxiety and frustration because nothing I say or do was ever right for a very long period of time. And it really impacted my leadership because it made me second guess everything I did. Because I knew that, well, if I do it this way, she's going to complain X. And if I do it that way, she's going to complain Y. There is no winning. And so I was constantly sort of straddling this line based on all these rules that I internalized about, oh, can't do that. That's going to tip, you know, that's going to make her go off. And can't do this because that's going to make her go off. And it's a terrible way to live. Yeah,
it sounds like it really caused some doubt and really just constantly throwing you off center. Just a lot of doubt.
Good paraphrase. Thank you.
Yeah, no, excellent. I coach for I do it all the time. Awesome. Someone else. Let's hear from one other person. Who would like to share? I see Karen.
Hi.
Hello. Oh, there we go. We got video. Yes, we got more people with video. This is great. I feel very connected.
So I'm the chief of, I work for the federal government, and I'm the chief of staff for my unit. And one of the things that causes a negative reaction in me is coworkers who think that whatever they want is more important than what everyone else has asked for. So when you're in a position like me, where you're supposed to solve everybody's problems with, money and human resources and contracts and things, it makes it very hard for me to do my job and satisfy people when you feel like no matter what you do, it's not fast enough or good enough. So that's my share.
Yeah, Karen, I'd be curious. What do you think is the value you hold that you feel is being infringed upon?
I think my ability to do the job fairly and do it well, if everything's always
Yeah. Yeah, I think something that's important in some of this work, and it's not in the slides, but it comes up for me all the time, is sometimes when I'm very angry, when, somebody's mere essence sometimes can just put me in a wrong spot. A lot of times it's I hold the value and I perceive, like they don't necessarily hold that value, and I'm perceiving that they're threatening the value I hold. And so a lot of times it's not really true, but I get very defensive around that. So if, for instance, fairness is a big quality for me, and someone's displaying unfairness, it can really untether me. And so sometimes just understanding what our core values are is an important part of a first step in kind of understanding that, hey, other people might not share them, but we can at least know where we're getting hooked in. So I hear a little bit of that going on there too. Beautiful. Beautiful. So, the importance of this is, I don't know about everybody else on this call, okay, but there are just certain people and certain things that just do it for me. And sometimes I can't you couldn't slide a piece of paper between and put a gap between somebody doing something and my emotional reaction. And the truth is, it causes me a lot of trouble. It causes me a lot of trouble in leadership. My leadership sinks very low. So what we're going to do today is try and do a little bit of writing to try and see if we can at least unhook some of those things so that we can put more of a gap between people's actions and perhaps our responses. Okay. And thank you for those who are throwing on their videos. It feels great. Feels great on a slow Wednesday. Beautiful. So we're going to talk about resentment. Okay, because a lot of times this tends to be some of the big emotion that's underneath some of this. Okay, and I put rumination there because we're talking about two probably different types of resentment or anger here. First type of resentment would be I'm driving along on the road, somebody cuts me off, I'm very angry, and within 20 minutes I've forgotten about it, I'm off at the party, and I don't remember it. Okay. Then there's the other kind of resentment, which I don't know if the rest of you have, and I might be exposing myself here too much. But there are still colleagues and people I worked with 6-7 years ago that I still have imaginary arguments with in my head, and I try to tell them who's right and who's wrong, and it's a waste of space and time. Okay, so sometimes I need to be principled in my boundaries and what I hold to be right and true, but there's a lot of resentment I hold that really is kind of draining my resiliency reserves, especially in the times we're in. Okay? So the first question I want to ask to you, and I'd love to hear from some folks I haven't heard from, if aliens came down from outer space and they knew nothing about anything on planet Earth, and they wanted to know what resentment is, what do you think would be the definition of the word resentment? What would you say? Who's got something we haven't heard from? Oh, I've got so many people to call on too. Let's see. How about Christine Hawkins, Bruce, or Kathy Myers? One of you three want to answer if you're there.
This is Kathy Myers.
Perfect.
I think resentment is somebody having something that you want in a lot of respects.
Tell me more about that, Kathy.
Um, maybe something to do with power or the ability to make things happen, and being stifled in what you want to do because of someone else or something else.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely an interrelationship quality there, and there's something around, well, we'll get to it in the next slide. I think you'll see where I'm headed with this. But thank you for that. Beautiful. Who else? Bruce.
Yeah, I think that resentment sometimes causes you to shut down and not contribute. And as a leader, you need to contribute, and that it impacts that, especially if there's, someone that really just presses a button.
Yeah.
And you're not going to do anything or say anything to help that person out of spite.
Yes. Thank you, Bruce. Totally true. I love the oh, go ahead. Yeah, I love the phrase you use there, which is pressing the buttons. There can be a feeling like there are certain people who just press those buttons and they press them right away, and it's immediate and the impact is intense. It's almost like they installed them. Somebody tell me, Bruce kind of started on this, but somebody kick us off. Tell us what the impact of having resentment, let's say you have resentment towards a certain person. What is the impact of that on your leadership ability? What do you think?
This is Matt. I can take a stab. So
Nice.
My definition of resentment is feeling like you're treated unfairly. That can be directly or indirectly. Indirectly, maybe somebody doesn't even know that you feel that way, but you do. So I think the impact on the leadership is it makes a bias. It puts a bad taste in your mouth. I'm at a 20-year career mark professionally and only a year and a half in the federal government. And I came in with a resentment for those 20th century type government employees who just looked at it as a job for life and not the impact that they could make. And the privilege of being a civil servant in public service. So that was a struggle with me for the first 6 months, just to understand the perspective and to take it more on myself as a coaching moment, to turn them more into a 21st century government employee like I feel I am, in terms of I'm there to make a difference. And I came from industry, but I came to the federal government to make an impact and not just for the security of it. So once I changed my mindset a little bit, I think my leadership was of more value to others because there wasn't that negative bias.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's hear from one other person. What do you think the impact of resentment is on your leadership ability? And then we'll dive a bit more in. Ingrid, perfect, thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Perfect, yep.
So the impact on resentment will be limiting your full potential and limiting like the day-to-day enjoy for what you're doing. Also, at the end of the day, I think the person that is actually hurting is like myself, right? If I carry resentment, then nobody else knows about it, but just it's something else that is limiting my potential, my full, I don't know how to say, like all the beauty around me doesn't exist anymore.
Yep, at 100%. There's a phrase I like, which is there's a lot of people living rent-free in my head. They don't pay any rent. They don't do any good. They're just living in there. And it's like, how do we get some of those people out? Because I love how you put that, Ingrid. And I would say resentment, it blocks off for me the more positive aspects of life. It's hard for me to be in a positive state of mind if I've got this resentment. Beautiful. So there's many definitions for this, but the ones that I pick that seem to resonate, and I think Matthew hit on this, it's anger or annoyance at the perception. It's a perception of having been wronged or treated unfairly. That's a key word here. And the resentment we're talking about today is to re-feel. Okay, so this is the stuff that gets lodged in and it won't go anywhere. Okay, 5 years after the fact, the mere mention of that person's name still triggers us up into a highly negative space. So that's the kind of stuff that, again, I'm not saying anyone has to change their perspectives, but I don't know about you, but I want to let some of this stuff go. It greatly impacts leadership ability. Here is a study from 2015. Now, I go into organizations and I teach speakers and facilitators all the time, and we tell them, only put up recent studies. But I put this study up here because in 2015, I'm pretty sure it'd be the same study today, the same percentages, which is 75% of employees said coworkers and office politics is the #1 biggest drain on their resiliency reserves. That includes their personal life. Okay? This stuff just saps people out. And here's a Harvard study I think is pretty important, maybe especially in the times we're in. Simply thinking about an angry experience, so not even being in the anger, not even being in the experience, just simply thinking about it causes our body a 6-hour dip in the antibodies that first fight off infections. So that's the cost of replaying some of this stuff over and over and over again. And I think maybe in COVID times, I mean, some of this stuff feels very relevant. I've been speaking for a little bit here with some facts. Any thoughts, reactions? Please raise your hand. I'd love to hear from you, as you can tell. Anybody want to add anything? Karen, did you unmute to talk?
Oh, I 100% agree. I think it probably links to what I said earlier about difficult coworkers, and it is a drain on you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Brad, I see you.
Yeah, hey, so I was just thinking one of the things that happens in these cases where there's resentment, the other person doesn't even have a clue why you resent them.
Nope. They're not even affected by it most times. Like, we're the ones shouldering all this burden,
Right.
and we're the ones that are dealing with it all, and they tend to go, it's even worse when they seem to be more carefree with life. It kills me.
Yeah.
Melissa, I see you unmuted.
Yes, so I immediately knew exactly whose name to write down.
Yes.
And the particular problem is this person is a manager in another department, and I have to work with him on a regular basis. And it really is making it very difficult to get things done.
Yeah, and just, if you feel like sharing, just could you tell us maybe a bit more of the impact on you or your leadership ability?
Well, because he is more senior, I often just acquiesce. Because I tend, as a project manager, I'm sort of driving to the end goal, and he'll, in a conversation, he'll ask a question, and we'll go, verbally for a walk in the park, and up to the moon, and then back, and it's so frustrating to try to get things done if all I said is, "Are you going to have this done on Friday?" Right?
Yep.
So it's just we've had a lot of schedule slippages and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all for the participation. I love people, so by all means, feel free. I love it. Thank you, Melissa.
You're welcome.
So what we're going to talk about here, okay, is, all right, if we kind of know what's at stake, I'm guessing that most people on this call know what it's like to be in an experience or work with somebody where it is just really frustrating. And so what we need to kind of talk more about is how, as human beings, do we make meaning out of the world? Because this is going to provide us the key to use some tools to get out from underneath some of this stuff. Okay, so here's how this works. Number one, experience. So all of you on this call right now are experiencing me, Patrick, facilitating this course. Okay, I know we live in a world with alternate facts, but that's as good of a fact as we can get. Okay, you're all here. Okay, here's what now happens. Everybody on this call, there's 70 people here. All of you are making up a story. This is your judgments and your opinions about how I'm doing. Okay, everybody here. Even if 70 of you are saying that this is good, hope, the variation on good is unique to everybody here. So as many people that exist in this room exist as many stories. Okay, that's just how it is. Okay, those stories then send signals to our brain, which then trigger feelings. Those feelings a lot of times trigger our actions. Okay, this is from this model is based on from a book called Crucial Conversations. Good book on how to deal with kind of conflict in the workplace, if you're not familiar with it. And as a coach, here's what I kind of see in the world. A lot of people either don't like the outcome and they don't like the action. Okay, they don't like the way they're behaving. They don't like where things are going. And what they try and do is they jump back to number one, which makes a lot of sense. Okay, it must be another job. It must be another partner. It must be new kids. It must be, I don't know what people say, but it must be something different in the experience. If I can only change the experience, I will feel differently and do different actions. Here's what I'm going to say. I think right now we live in a wonderful time where this is, well, wonderful is the wrong word, but to prove this point, which is a lot of times we can't control the experiences. Okay? There are just some people we have to work with. There are just some things going on in the world we have to be with. And so what we need to do is to start changing the story about how we see what's going on in the world around us. This, again, sometimes you do need to change the experience. I'm not here to tell you to stay in a job that's not good for a really long time. What I am here to say is changing the experience is not the most powerful place a leader can be. Changing the story, we always have control over the narrative we're telling ourselves, always. And so actually changing the story, which then changes the feelings and the actions, is something we can always control. Okay? I've been speaking for a little bit here, throwing some of this to you. I'd love to hear some reactions, comments. You can vehemently disagree with me. It's all okay. It's a slow Wednesday. Go for it. Give you a minute to see if anyone wants to comment. Anybody lost? Okay. Okay. So we are, well, here's a nice quote. I'm a big quote person. If you ever see any more of my presentations, sometimes, like I have way too many quotes in there. But I like this. If you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. The way that it was always explained to me is if something's really bothering me and I can't change the experience, my job is to go into the glasses store and buy a new pair of glasses. The way I'm seeing it is a bit off. Okay? I always have control over my perspective. It's something nobody can ever take away from me. Okay? Okay. So we're going to do a little story inventory. So you say, Patrick, I love this, but how the heck do you do some of this? And I say that I've searched very far and wide for inventory questions that can help dislodge me from resentments. This is something that's bothered me for quite a bit of time, and so I've had to do a lot of work here. So everything I'm going to give to you today is stuff that I used to carry around a notebook and do with me on the job. I was just very grateful that nobody ever got my notebook. Okay? So here's what I'd like you to start to do, if you so choose. On your piece of paper, you might have already written this person down. Okay? If so, that's fine. What I'd like you to do is to list the person, place, or thing you're currently resentful at. I'd like you to list all the reasons you're resentful. Okay? You get to have at it. Empty the tank. And then the third question I want you to answer is, if I could control the world and I could control this person, what would I want from them? I could have them do anything that would make me happy. What would it be? Person, place, or thing, listing the reasons, and what I want from them in a perfect world is. So I'll give you a couple minutes to do some of this writing. We're going to use this for the remainder of the workshop. So if you have any questions, just feel free to ask. Matthew, I cannot see the chat. I mean, I can, but I just don't have it open. So if there's a question in there that seems relevant, by all means, could you ask it for me?
Yep. Right now, just people are enjoying the conversation and looking forward to the interactiveness of it. So.
Nice. Nothing like talking about resentment on a Wednesday.
In the meantime, can you, for those who are already done, can you kind of share what pivoted you from film production and more the performance arts into coaching? Was it a calling? Was it something you always wanted to do?
So I have always felt that I have an ability to work with people. So I was trained as a film director. I loved working with actors. I always knew that that was kind of the talent. And in my 20s, I just went through some very difficult life experiences, which showed me that whatever ability I had with actors, I had on a larger scale. So today I consider working with coaching clients, I consider their lives kind of the movies that I was trying to do before. And you get to be with them through the entire journey. So it's like being in a movie that writes itself as you're there helping people through the scenes of it. It's a wonderful experience. Hope that answers. Give you all another minute or two for those questions. And by all means, if we move too fast, just tell me to slow down. It's hard for me to get a read without seeing folks. Give you another minute. After this activity, if you do it, you'll never get a chance to say nobody ever heard all the reasons you were resentful. Get to empty them out. I'm giving you carte blanche. Go for it. I tell my coaching clients this all the time. Go ahead. Another 30 seconds. Okay. For the sake of time, I have a phrase in my workshops, which is wherever you are is where the universe wants you to be. It's all good. You will, by all means, take a picture of this, screenshot it, keep these questions, and as I take you through, you'll be able to use this ad nauseum throughout life. I do it all the time. So the second piece of the writing, so somewhere underneath or on your piece of paper in a separate place, now we are going to put them or it aside. Okay, so there's a phrase I like, and I hope I don't anger somebody with this, but I don't know if you got taught this in school, but when you have one finger pointing out, you've got three pointing back. Anybody ever hear this? Okay, no? Okay, well, here's three. Okay, so we're going to spend the rest of this time looking at our role. Since we can't control people, places, and things often to the extent we need, what we can change is ourselves. So how do we change the story? So the first question you want to ask yourself is my role. How have I contributed to this situation existing? I'll give you something that clients tell me all the time, and it's my biggest one. My role is I expected this person to read my mind. We don't communicate with people our needs, and then we get mad at them for not meeting them. If that is yours, we're in the same boat. Okay? So my role, how have I contributed to the situation? Number two, thinking about their behavior. Where in the past have I kind of behaved like this? Okay. Number three, what is one other way? Not the right way, not the correct way, but just what's one other way to view this situation? What might else be going on here? And then the fourth question, and this is the one that people struggle with a lot, and it's real, and it causes a reaction. What, in a general sense, is sad or unfortunate about this situation? A lot of times resentment can just be the situation is sad and we don't like feeling sad about things, so we get angry instead. So here are 4 questions. I'd like you to take a couple minutes if you so choose and go for it, and then we'll kind of start talking about this on the other side of it with folks who might want to share in specific or general terms. By all means, if there's any other questions, please just ask me. Notice if you experience any resistance around any one of these questions. A lot of times people experience resistance around the first question. It gets very hard after if we're pointing outward for a long time to look inward. That one takes a bit of practice over time. Give you another minute. Okay. Here's what I'd love to do for the next couple minutes. I would love to hear from some folks. No right, wrong answers. You're not going to scare me with anything. I would just love to know what the experience of this writing has been like so far. Anything you're uncovering, throwing away, not liking. Just would love to hear some feedback from some folks. So feel free to jump on in.
I think most of the time we're taught that we shouldn't have feelings at work. Feelings are for your spare time. So it's nice that you're making us feel like it's okay.
Yeah. I think one of the greatest things as humans we can do for other humans, especially in a workplace, is carve out time to just give them space to share their feelings and not fix it. Just validate the experience. I see someone else has their microphone unmuted. Go for it.
Yeah, so in the other slide, one of the questions that I hope you were going to talk a little bit more about is what I want to get out of it. And actually, I think that's the hardest one because basically I cannot turn back time. And to some extent, in situations like this, when I think of what they could do to fix the wrong, I feel that I won't trust those people anymore. So even if they make me feel better, or maybe if they gave the position to someone else and now some miracle happened and gave them to me, it wouldn't feel like they really wanted me to do it, you know?
Yeah, so I do hear a little bit of what I think I hear a little bit of what you want in there, which is, I don't want to be putting words in your mouth, so please come right back with, but it's kind of like nothing. Like I want them to either leave me alone or not do any of that, or there's something there like a disconnect, like a boundary. Yeah, so I hear a little bit there. The reason for that question, and I'm going to explain the process on the flip side, is there's a phrase I like, which is, let me make sure I get this right. Expectation is a resentment waiting to happen. Because often we expect a lot of things from people, and we've projected into the future and said, this is the way XYZ is going to go. And chances are it's never going to go like XYZ. And so that question is more to show us that, hey, here's what I want, and it's valid, but to draw a comparison between here's what I want and here's what they're doing, and that gap is what causes a lot of that pain. So that's where some of that question comes from.
Okay. Thank you.
Of course, thank you. I see Beth.
So I struggle a lot with the first question, my role. And I won't say that I'm utterly blameless, but the relationship got off to a bad start through nothing that I did other than breathe. Have you ever heard anyone say, what did I do? I exist, right? Yep. Someone came in with a chip on their shoulder and biases, and every question I asked was taken in the worst possible way, and the worst possible spin was put on anything I said or did. So I could just say boo, and it could be a problem. So I don't feel like my role is that I said boo. My role is that I existed, and this person came in with a pre-bias and judged everything I said in the worst possible light. And then and then of course I contributed over time, but it started off that way. So I have a tough time with this question.
Yeah, so sometimes I work with people where 99, there's somebody once told me 99.9% is the other person. Like, that is just it. The 0.1% is that I haven't done the work yet to get it out from deeply bothering me. So that's still my part. So at a minimum, maybe I should have thrown that to you earlier. At a minimum, like, there are some things that are just horrific that can happen to people in the world. And my role is that I haven't let it go, to move on, to enjoy my life the best way I can.
That is an excellent point, because I will tell you, months after agony, the description you had early on in this meeting when you said every day you wake up and you wish you were in a different job, after months of that kind of agony, one day I finally made the decision, and I don't remember what triggered it, but I made the decision that I'm going to stop caring what she thinks of me. And from that day on, it got a lot better. Yep. And I'd forgotten about that because I was focusing on the negative because of the questions.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Beth. Great example. I'd love to hear from someone else, one other person. Plenty of shy folks on a Wednesday. How about, I'll call on another 4 or 5 people and let's see if someone responds in here. Randomly, how about Earl Taylor, Ed Miller, Douglas, Emily, Joseph, or Aaron?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Earl, pleasure.
Yeah, so one of the things I found is giving up my right to resent gives me the freedom to leave the stuff behind, right? And with that, I, like you said, they're taking up space rent-free in my head. I evict them and move on by giving up my right to resent. And it's an act of generosity that I can generate for myself at any time. It's not about them, it's about me, and being able to move on and be effective for what I want for my life without the garbage hanging on to whatever that situation was.
Yeah.
So I found that to be very effective for me.
That's beautiful. And there's I don't believe in absolutes. Like, I'm not an absolute person. I believe life is the gray area. But there's a phrase that has a bit absolute to it. It's sometimes my problem is, do I want to be right or do I want to be happy? And when I'm trying to be right, I'm just not that happy. Sometimes I'm just not that happy.
The two often don't coexist.
Yeah. Yeah. So you just reminded me. Thank you for that, Earl. Pleasure. Anyone else before we move on to the next slide? Okay. All right, so here's the last piece of writing. Okay, something to think about, ponder, take these questions with you. Number 1, what's the personal opportunity for me here? Okay, things I hear with clients often, and I will tell you I am the biggest, this is my growing edge for, like, it seems like the last 10 years. I love people, I hate conflict. So often a personal opportunity for me is to, let's say, express my needs and have them have a chance to be met. It's to step into conflict but hold my own ground. It's to, as was just mentioned, the opportunities for me to let go of my right to be resentful. So that's what we mean by that question. We're taking what's an uncontrollable space and we're trying to make it as controllable as possible. Okay. Number 2, what's my growth in this situation? Here's a good one. So it's often said that forgiveness is the opposite of resentment. I think gratitude takes it one step further. If I can find some way that I'm grateful for the situation existing, I'm going to operate in a lot of power. A lot of power. And lastly, what behaviors of mine need some changing? Okay. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes. You've done a little bit of writing. See how this lands and resonates. See what you come up with. And I'm here for any questions, comments. Feel free. Keep it interactive. But I'll give you a couple minutes for those doing some writing. One thing I will say, there is science behind this. I don't have access to it in my head right now. There is something about the brain learning as it hand writes out notes rather than us talking to ourselves or talking it out loud. There's something in the memorization process that occurs. It's why I think writing is one of the most effective ways to do these exercises. And just notice if any of these questions bring up resistance. That's normal. This is not something we often do. If anyone's lost, please just speak up. Okay, I would love to hear, in regards to this slide here in particular, I'd love to hear from some folks. What's some feedback, reactions? You like what's on the slide, it works, you don't like. I think hopefully by now in this hour you think I'm a pretty flexible person. I just love to hear some honest reactions. Bruce.
So for the personal opportunity, it's to grow. There's something that's a barrier standing in your way, and to make the conscious decision to overcome it, you're going to grow. And hopefully you can bring other people along with you as well. And you'll improve the dynamic of the group, and you'll show them that what your true qualities are, and you'll build some respect and some understanding with it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love that. Someone else. Jake.
Yeah, thinking about this question, since my background has been working as a contractor for the government and being a consultant in one of the large consulting companies, I look for opportunities that not all the time do you end up with good clients. Sometimes we end up with very, very difficult clients who you never would want to be friends with, and they're very, very challenging to you, and they also look down upon you because you may be a contractor. The challenge is how do you put that aside and try to work with them and see what can happen. So I'll relate a situation where I had a very, very arrogant, very difficult client who thought he was great, and the contractors couldn't do it, he'd try to put you down all the time. But I knew that I was going to be judged of the success of working with the client. And through persistence and through demonstrating, despite what the difficulties he threw at me, but being persistent and delivering the product, in the end, this was the biggest shock to me. This person not only turned around, but ended up being a part of my 360 review cycle and put in a review for me saying this is one of the best contractors I've ever had. So the tenacity of putting aside your personal dislike and trying to think about what the outcome will be and try to make a person satisfied is a very difficult thing to do. But in the end, it turned out to be a good thing, because now I see this person a lot in the government agency I support, and they're always friendly, asking me, and they remember a lot about things. So what I recognize is that you have to put aside personal feelings to be able to handle even the most resentful, difficult situations for a positive outcome, especially if you're going to be in the consulting world.
Yeah, and you know what I love about that, Jake, is I don't know if you can, if the folks on the call can hear it. What I love about that is Jake is, on the other side of that, a changed person for the better. So he has smoothed off some of these harder edges, and he now has the capacity to work with a wider range of people because of that. I love that stuff. I love it. Thank you, Jake. And Earl, I saw you with your microphone unmuted. I wanted to just check back with you. Nope, maybe not. Oh, there we go.
No, I remuted myself, so I had to unmute again. Sorry. So, number 3 is really resonating. I think I love the way you said that. If that takes it to the next level, forgiveness is the first step. But going back to the story, and you can take this quote: "An attitude of gratitude helps you create stories that are more empowering for yourself going into it."
I love it. I love it. Gratitude is a language. It's a mindset and a vision that sees things as gifts. So if I can see difficult people as a gift, I'm suddenly in an empowered place. I could not agree more. Could not agree more. Anyone else want to share here before we move kind of the last section? Then we're going to wrap up here in about 8 minutes for some Q&A. Anybody got something burning they just want to say?
Hey, this is Russell Sandage. I changed the name on my picture there, probably due to the situations going on. You mentioned what was going on down in DC right now. So this is giving me an opportunity to think about how situations that can be greater than just an individual or just my company or just those people in my community around me. And I have been able to think that I have to accept the responsibility for me making my own personal change and trying to find a way that I can make an impact out inside the community outside my own mind.
I love that. I love that. I think a lot of times something that shows up in my inventory and my role is I actually have more power than I've let on, but I haven't stepped into it. For me, that comes up a lot. I self-limit. There are stories and beliefs that self-limit me, and I maybe assume restrictions sometimes where I have some more role to play. So I love that. Russell, thank you for that. Okay. Beautiful. You never know how it's going to go talking about resentment. So I'm thank you all for the participation. It's wonderful. So here is basically what we did. I want to show you the reverse of this process. Okay. So 2 ways through the resentment. Number one, we got to deflate the ego. I don't want to say anything good or bad about the ego. I don't even want to go there. What I do want to say is that if we keep pointing outward, we're missing the selfish opportunities to grow ourselves. Okay. I don't know if other people have this experience. I can't even, but as a human being, a lot of times, some of the same people keep showing up in my life until I make a change and then they stop showing up. Sometimes life keeps presenting me with some of the same lessons over and over and over again. And often for me, it's because I've not pointed inward yet to do the work to grow past that chapter to something different. Okay, so that's a bit spiritual. I'm a spiritual person. If you don't resonate with that, that's okay. I don't want to lose you. But we need to deflate the ego. Okay, so these first 3 questions here, this is the ego. The ego thinks it's going to get a pass here to just, we get to do writing? Yeah, let's keep listing all the reasons we're angry. But we need to get it involved. So this hooks the ego into the process, and then we deflate it. We start softening our hearts because the ego's got us hardened up into a very 2-dimensional space. So these questions here soften it, okay? I want to stress this isn't about not fighting good fights, and it's not about not setting boundaries. All of that's really loving, but I think it's about getting us out of that kind of automatic code red 2-dimensional space where we've lost the ability to lead from our highest levels. We can't do that if we're not softening some of this stuff up. Okay, so here's the other piece of resentment. A lot of times resentment is a lot about sadness. It's about something that's unfortunate. And a lot of times I find that humans don't have a great, I don't know why, we don't have a great vocabulary with just allowing ourselves to be sad. When we're sad, it makes other people uncomfortable. Sometimes things are just sad and unfortunate and we need to feel some of that. I will say, and it's not on this slide, another big driver of resentment is deep personal fears. Okay, so we can feel a lot of fear. The defense mechanism is anger. I just think, and what I'm laying out to all of you today is maybe if we are being bogged down by a lot of things, what would it be like to just ask ourselves some questions about how true some of this stuff is? And if it is true, what can we do about it? If it's not true, how can we let it go? Okay, so just laying out some tools. Lastly, here's an exercise that is wonderful. You don't even need another person for this one. You can do this in the mirror. Okay. If you want to soften your heart so that you can lead from a more enlightened space, okay, you're going to narrate a first-person account using first-person pronouns, I, me, my. You're going to pretend that you're this person, okay? And you're going to tell a logical story of how it makes perfect sense why they do what they do. Because here's the truth. Everybody on this call believes what they're doing makes logical sense to them. So if we can get there first, we can at least soften our heart spaces so we can be in relationship with them much more effectively. Okay, I think when we start making it black and white, right and wrong, that might be true. It might be true, but I don't know that it helps us make more higher level decisions in our relationships with some of these people. Okay, I'm doing this selfishly for you. I just think we can get more selfish about owning some of the things that own us. I think it would put us in a much more powerful place. Okay. So we have a few minutes here before I kind of turn this at 8:45 to, I guess there's Q&A, and Matthew, I'll turn it to you and let you navigate that. But I'd love to just hear some final reactions, some takeaways. You know, what's in the space? Anything and everything is okay with me. Love to hear from some folks. So just go for it.
So I'd like to share my thought because, you know, there's been a lot of self-reflection as we answer these questions. But I think about the situation that I shared with you all, and I don't think that it's a matter only of self-reflection. I think there need to be other people to help with that journey. So sometimes we do need to reach out when we'll call it a little more political.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I love about that is I always think that if we're going to make a decision, I always want to make sure it comes from as balanced of a place as possible. And I think that's awesome. I think that's awesome. Just kind of getting the emotions out of the way to make the decision. Beautiful. Someone else. Karen.
I appreciate you giving us different ways to look at things. And this person that I mentioned who's always putting a sense of urgency on everything with me, you know, I just thought, well, maybe he's very passionate about what he does, and maybe that's where his urgency is coming from. Or he's maybe 15 years younger than me, maybe like me once, he's trying to move up in his career, and maybe that's where his, you know, feelings of urgency are coming from. So I guess I need to think about maybe how he might see things. So thank you.
You're welcome. Awesome. Wonderful. Someone else. Anyone else? Something resonating? Yeah, Earl.
I see where the role of my expectations get in the way without confirming, right? You know, I have an expectation of X, Y, or Z, and I don't communicate that. The other person has a very low probability of being able to hit that. So I can see where that could be problematic. Not likely to be successful.
Yeah. Earl, I laugh because I do it all the time. I just do it all the time. Okay, so we are at 8:45. Matthew, I'm not sure how you run this last couple minutes of this, but I'll turn it to you unless you turn it back to me, and but I'll leave it with you here.
Sure. So we're just going to open it up for a Q&A for you, Mr. Murphy. So for everyone's awareness, consulting hours with Mr. Murphy come at a price. So this is 10 to 15 minutes of free consulting. So if you have a question or conflict in your own professional workspace, preferably that you'd like some counsel on, please share with the group. Opening the floor to everyone else.
Beautiful. Most common question I get is, are my plants real? They're not, they're fake. People ask it all the time.
I guess if people are thinking of a question, my question would be, how do you, you have a good program on coaching conflict for others, but do you struggle with conflict management in your own professional circles? And how do you have a coach for that, or do you follow your own framework, or can you kind of take us to when you find conflict, how you work personally?
Yeah, absolutely. So I do have a coach for, I don't have a specific conflict coach. However, I would say that my coach knows well that conflict is something that I try to avoid. So, I think this starts with knowing oneself. I mean, we have so much about ourselves, and the more we know about ourselves, the more we know where our pitfalls are. And I am a people pleaser. I love, interacting with people. I just like things going along to get along. And so often for me, I actually have a talk coming up on Friday with a work colleague in which I will have to end an engagement. And it turns the insides of my stomach. It just turns it. I just, and I watch other people do this with impunity. They just do it and they tend to like doing it. For me, it's about having compassion with myself that this is something that, I could go into a whole thing about this, but I'll just say it's something that I know I struggle with, and I don't think throughout my adult life I will stop struggling with it. What I've learned to do is to be compassionate, that I'm going to face a lot of problems doing this. There's no style points doing it, but I have to do it. And I think a great definition of courage, I used to think courage was not having fear, but courage is feeling a ton of fear, but knowing that I'm going to do it anyway. And so that is really how I go into things like conflict. I think a better way to phrase conflict is being in full service of the relationship. If something's bothering me, what's ironic about it is that ultimately the relationship will probably collapse because I didn't share it with you. I will probably get fed up, and then I'll blow the relationship up one way. So I know for me that I have to, conflict is a struggle for me, which means I'm never going to like doing it, but I have to do it early and often. And I ask people to hold me accountable to that because I hate it. I don't know if that answers the question, Matthew.
No, it definitely did. Any questions from the group?
Oh, I see someone here.
Yeah, this is Russell Sandage again. I, like Jake, am a government contractor. And working as a contractor, we frequently get a different situation with the government employees. So many government employees I'm very cool with, we get along great. But there are some that just have a condescending, superior attitude. And they're relying on me to get all of the work done. I'll leave a couple of words out.
Nice.
And then they have that attitude. So that would be my situation, that I would, how to deal with those folks that have that attitude, that are relying on me, but have a condescending attitude.
Yeah. So two things come to mind, and I could spend, it's taken me years to move past this stuff, and I coach clients all the time through stuff like this. And two things come up. One is a helpful phrase is that it's often not about me. So sometimes I view the world through my kind of self-centered prism that their reaction has to do with me. And what helps me is what is going on in their world that they need to do that to feel superior over me. I can come at it with a place of man, that must be rough to have to do this to me to gain points. So it's a way of trying to put myself with a little bit of compassion for perhaps some pain they might be going through. That's the first piece. Anyone that's kind of not at ease is feeling some discomfort. The second thing I would say is, this comes up for me a lot, and maybe we could all use this to some degree. Sometimes my role or my growing opportunity is tolerance. And that's really hard for me. Tolerance for me is accepting behavior, but not liking it. And I think we're in again, there's a fine line. So many behaviors in the world need to be changed, and especially right now. And what I need to ask myself is, in 5 years, will any of this matter? If the answer is no, it's what am I doing? And for me, then it goes to tolerance. I don't know if that's helpful or not.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Well, a great hour plus of content. Mr. Murphy, we appreciate your time and your preparation for this. Thank you to Ruby Bradley Kane for finding you and convincing you to volunteer your time. For our attendees, Mr. Murphy's graciously allowed us to convert this recording to a YouTube link and share it with our chapter members. So if there was something that you said that stuck with you, but you didn't get a chance to write down or phrase it a certain way, that'll be available tomorrow morning, as well as a download of the slides on the website.
All right. Thanks, Patrick. I really appreciate it. And also Matt for coordinating this whole effort. Thanks everybody for joining us tonight. I really appreciate it.
Yep.
Great job, Patrick. Great job.
Thank you so much.
I really enjoy it. I was late coming in. Something else came up, but I enjoyed what you had to say.
Thank you.
And then as customary for our virtual meetings, we had a random number generator for a raffle. So our 3 winners of future face-to-face chapter dinners at Normandy Farm Restaurant in Potomac are Miss Venera Jordan, Mr. Russell Sandage, and Miss Debbie Kulik. So we'll follow up with an email. So you can bring that coupon hopefully in September, October when we resume our face-to-face meetings. And if nothing else, thank you for everyone's time, attendance, and positive energy. Mr. Murphy appreciates it, and as do we. Have a great evening and stay safe.
All righty. Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.